Hey there, pixies and peeps. Thanks for tuning in again to the Purple Pixie, and welcome back to the Fairy Garden, which is what I call my craft room. Today's video is my second installment in my Save Our Earth collab, and my co-host this month is Theresa B, DIY. This collab takes place every fourth Thursday of the month, so if you're a YouTube DIYer, be sure to join in next month. Now, about my co-host, Theresa B DIY, if you didn't know it already, she's been fundraising for the Fisher House Foundation all month long. All of the proceeds from all of her revenue for the month of May is being donated to the Fisher House Foundation. They house families of veterans while they're in the hospital receiving specialized care. Since my channel's not monetized yet, you can help me donate to the Fisher House Foundation by buying me a coffee using the link below in my description box. There is also a $40 Amazon gift card giveaway in this video, so stay tuned for details on that. All of today's DIYs have to do with a backyard cookout. So let me open a cold drink. And let's get started with how to welcome your guests with a tablecloth wreath. Our first couple items of trash that we'll be using for our DIYs are these leftover tablecloths and this turntable from a microwave. A friend of mine was going to throw it out, but I rescued it from the roadside and saved the turntable itself to make into a tiered tray, and this turntable ring to use as a wreath form. And of course, who doesn't have leftover tablecloths? So that all sounds like trash to me. What I'm doing here is cutting slits in the folded tablecloths about an inch thick. And here's some more garbage that I know we all have on hand. Empty grocery bags. We're gonna cut those up and use them too. Once I have all my strips cut, I'm going to fold them in half, slip them under the ring, and just tie them in a slip knot. And whereas you do want to get them a little tight, you don't want to pull them so much that they stretch. We're trying to stretch our dollars, not our tablecloth. And I'm not gonna lie to you, this part did take a little bit of time, but if you just put on the Purple Pixie channel on YouTube and binge watch a few videos, the time flies right by. See there? That wasn't so bad after all. Here I'm going to take the plastic bag and 2 strips at a time, I'll give them a tie in between the blue and the red. I'll leave the pattern down in the description box below so you'll know how many strips of blue, then white, then red, then white, and so forth and so on. You may notice that as I'm pulling them to the left, I'm also giving them a little twirl. That's to help me tighten them without having to pull them and stretch them. And now, give it a little haircut and fluff it out. I'm going to put a little tag in the middle of the wreath, but I want to stain the wood before I put a decal on it. So here I'm taking a baby wipe and my folk art chalk paint in the color Java. I just wet the baby wipe a little bit more and dip it in the paint, wipe it on, and wipe it off. Now I'm taking a piece of Scotch tape to use as, well, painter's tape. And I'm using another folk art acrylic paint this time in the color Cobalt to give it a blue stain at the top of the tag. This color is so pretty. It reminds me of the color of the ocean when I was on the cruise. Since this staining technique with paint has literally no drying time, I'm going to go ahead and take the tape up, tape down my other lines, and stain 2 more stripes with my Craft Smart acrylic paint in the color red. You're going to see me use this technique a lot in this video because it's just so darn easy and really rustic looking. It's almost virtually impossible to mess up. And hey, with as many mistakes as I make, that's right up my alley. It's just what I need, something I can't mess up. Now with my silhouette, I cut out a decal and I'm trying to get it onto the transfer tape. However, I always cut a little too deep, so I'm using my weeding tool to just remove the letters from the paper backing onto the transfer tape. And now we have a sweet little tag that says, "God bless the USA." Now, I didn't have any red, white, and blue ribbon, but what I do have is red, white, and blue curling ribbon, and that makes it really easy to add it to our wreath. So I'm going to tie the tag onto the curling ribbon, and then tie the curling ribbon onto the wreath. So, are you new here? If so, I'd like to welcome you to the Purple Pixie. I'd really love for you to subscribe to my channel and become a part of the Pixie Party. We have lots of fun, lots of laughs, and lots of really cheap crafts. And if you're one of my returning subscribers and already a part of the Pixie Party, welcome back, and I want to say thank you again for watching and for all the support of my channel. Because you already know that without you, I wouldn't be here. Now I figured while I already had the curling ribbon out, I may as well go ahead and give this wreath a little more oomph. So I took some blue and tied it in the blue, I took some white and tied it in the white, and I took some red and I tied it, well, you guessed it, in the red. And now you have a beautiful wreath to welcome all your visitors. Now here's one thing you may not have known about curling ribbon. If you get it too tight, you can uncurl it. You just simply take your scissor blade, run it the opposite side of the curling ribbon, and it'll straighten it out. Now let's move on to DIY number 2, Let Freedom Ring Bell. From this point on in the video, I'll have a lot of still shots because I had a lot of issues with my phone and deleted footage. So here's the original bell that I made that I have no footage of me making, but I'm going to recreate it with another jar just so I can show you how I did it. The original one was made with a salsa jar. However, I don't need a whole lot of salsa. So for this one I'm going to be using a Cheese Whiz jar, because I eat more cheese than I do salsa. You're going to need a wooden dowel, some glass beads, fishing line, and hot glue. I used my miter box and I cut off the dowel to about 4 inches in length. And ladies, I highly recommend you do this yourself. Unless you have your husband or spouse do it, then tell him you need it 8 inches in length. That way, he'll come back with something 4 inches in length. Once I had the dowel cut, I sanded it down and just around the edges so that there would be no splinters when someone goes to ring the bell. And now I'm drilling a hole right down the middle of the dowel so when I put a screw through it, it won't crack or split the wood. I'm also going to put a hole right in the middle of that lid. Now using the same staining technique that I used on the tag for the wreath, I'm going to stain the dowel and I'm going to paint the lid with folk art chalk paint in the color Imperial. And once again, I'm going to use some tape to mark off some lines so that I can stain my dowel with the red, white, and blue paint. This little bell is going to come in real handy for whoever's doing the cooking by the grill. Because you know when you're at a cookout, the most asked question is the food ready yet? Hey, when's the food going to be ready? This way the grill master can shoo everyone away and tell them I'll ring the bell when it's ready. What kind of food do you like to serve at your cookouts? Here in South Louisiana, we mostly do crawfish boils. But we also have barbecue pits too, so we grill out a lot as well. However, most of us only have a grill for backup when the electricity goes out during a hurricane. Now, to make sure the bell rings loud and clear, you want to use glass beads. So I rummaged through my stash and I found these red, white, and blue ones. And now I'm going to take some fishing line. I measure it up on the side of my jar to make sure that it's going to land just where I want it inside the jar. And then I doubled it. I took one strand and fed it through the bottom bead, and then took both strands, fed it through the second bead, and then once again for the top, I just used one strand and tied it in several knots. Gee, I hope that made sense. I didn't mean to confuse you if it did. But once I got all those knots tied, I measured it again and tied it into a slip knot, and that will be the knot that I glue to the bottom of my jar. I put a hefty amount of hot glue right in the middle. I'm going to push the string down into the glue using a skewer stick. Now make sure when you let go of the beads that they don't land in the hot glue. But go ahead and go in with a little bit more hot glue and put a scrap piece of craft stick down in there right over the top of the hot glue, just to hold the string in place a little more, well, stable. Once you have about 2 or 3 coats of dry paint on the lid, go ahead and go in with the screw from underneath and then screw the dowel on so that you have a handle on your belt. And just to make sure that it doesn't come off whenever somebody rings the bell, use a good hefty amount of E6000 and let this sit possibly under something heavy for about 24 hours. And now on to DIY number 3, the Lazy Susan. Now when the food's all ready, you need something to serve it on, right? So we're going to make a Lazy Susan that'll hold some utensils. You're going to need a large tin can lid like the one I'm using from a popcorn tin from Christmas time. And also, I have this butter cookies container that I got at the Dollar Tree during Christmas time, and we're going to use that as the base of our Lazy Susan. The original one I made, I painted white, but when I had to recreate it because of lost footage, I painted it red. I measured the circumference, and I added an inch. That's what she said, right? Sorry, I couldn't pass that one up. Anyway, I measured the circumference of the cookie tin, and I added an inch, and I'm taking this old soda box, and I'm going to cut out a strip that's actually about an inch taller than the can is. Once I have that strip cut out, I'm going to measure again and measure out that extra inch. And then, as I use the ruler to draw that line, I'm going to press really hard with my ink pen so it gives me kind of a score line to fold the cardboard. And then I use my scraper tool that I use for my silhouette, and I burnish it down. Now cut little slits into the cardboard up to that line so that we can roll and fold this and glue it down to the inside of our Lazy Susan. You may have saw me trace that circle a little earlier, and that is going to be our guide as to where we want our cardboard strip to fit. So put a little glue just inside that line and make sure that the cardboard strip does not go outside the line. Once you have your cardboard strip all the way in a circle, test to make sure that the bottom can fits inside snugly but still turns. And now, thanks to some lost footage again, I'm just going to show you that I painted the top of the popcorn tin with white Aaaaaand folk art chalk paint. And then I decoupaged some stars from some napkins, and I distressed it a little bit with a little of the Java from folk art chalk paint. Using some old golf balls, I put them in the bottom can, and that is what makes the Lazy Susan turn. And now I need something to eat with, so let's make some utensil holders. Using these old tin cans, I'm not even going to take the labels off. I'm just going to give them a good coat of some white acrylic chalk paint because we're going to decoupage these and I don't want anything showing through the napkins. For 2 of these cans, I'm going to be using some Patriotic napkins I found at the Dollar Tree. But for the 3rd can, I'm going to be using this leftover shipping paper, and using a design that I created on my Silhouette Studio, I'm going to print it up. So I'll take the shipping paper, cut it out to the same size as a piece of copy paper, and use some double-sided tape to tape it to that copy paper, and then run that through my printer. You could also do this with gift tissue paper, but I wanted something a little thicker than that. And again, that's what she said. So here we are with those Patriotic napkins and the design that I printed up myself. I'm going to decoupage them onto the cans using a good bit of Mod Podge, depending on how thick the paper is. This one's kind of thick, so I'll go in with a good bit. Let that dry a little, and then I'll go over it with the Mod Podge again. That way we get less wrinkles. Do you like to decoupage? Boy, I sure do. I find it's the easiest way to decorate something that I can't screw up. And if there's a specific design you want, you have so many options. Like this one I said I created in my Silhouette Design Studio. But I've also been known to Google images online, save them as a picture, and then print them out onto tissue paper or even copy paper. There's tons of websites out there that you can get free images from. Just Google it and see what you come up with. Okay, now we're moving on to the napkins, which of course are quite thinner than that shipping paper. So I'm just doing a thin layer of Mod Podge, smoothing it out as softly as I can, and then trimming up the excess. I left some to overlay the top of the can, and I cut off the excess on the bottom. To cover the lip of the can, I'm going to put some glue on the inside and just fold the napkin down inside and brush it down even with my paintbrush. And I repeated the same process for the 3rd can with that other napkin. Now that the shipping paper is dried a little bit, I'm going to go back and do a top coat layer of Mod Podge. And I also folded that paper onto the inside of the can. Now, it's time for the outer layer of the napkin. And you can see the little ridges of the can are showing through. But that's okay because I think it gives it a more rustic look anyway. And since I can't seem to leave well enough alone with this curling ribbon, I decided to go back and use that as an embellishment on each can. But instead of tying all three on at one time, I'm going to kind of stagger them so that way they kind of fill out the area a little bit more. Now, you could just trim them down, but I prefer the curling method. You could also just wrap these in twine, or maybe even some raffia to make it look a little more rustic. Now, DIY number 5 is an eggshell mosaic coasters. Now, when I realized that I had lost the footage to these coasters, I literally cried. I was so sick to my stomach that I couldn't even eat the dinner that I had cooked. But it is what it is. I put my big girl britches on and I got on with it, just so I could remake one more for video purposes. And it actually kind of turned out to be a blessing in disguise because this one really didn't take as long to make as the other 4. So let me explain what I'm doing. I took a total of 8 craft sticks for one coaster. And for 5 of those craft sticks, I cut them down to the same size. And using a straight edge and some painter's tape to hold them in place, I'm going to make sure that they are all perfectly straight, and then I will measure the other 3 craft sticks to fit across the back of the other 5. And now, using a piece of 80 grit sandpaper, I sand down the edges of each craft stick. And I even round out the sides on the little edges just so they're not so pokey. And like I said, I use this technique a lot in this video. I'm going to go in with a baby white and stain them with my folk art chalk paint in the color Java, making sure that I get the edges and the ends. Now, to make these into a little flag, I'm going to tape off the ends and do 2 of them with blue, and then do 2 in the color Imperial by Folk Art Chalk Paint, and 2 in the color White Adirondack by Folk Art Chalk Paint. And then I switch the paint around on my blue ones and do 1 in red and 1 in white. In order to give these coasters more of a palette look, I'm using these skewers as spacers when I put them together. Of course, I'm using my ruler for a straight edge because, well, you know me, I can't get anything straight. So once I have those taped together, I'm going to flip them over and remove the skewers. And of course, one comes undone, I got to put it back in, but remove the skewers, and now I'm going to glue the back brace onto the coasters. But hey, did you notice what I did wrong? Well, watch again. Did you catch it that time? No? Okay, well here's one more shot. Any idea what I did wrong? Well, let me flip it over and show you. I didn't put any glue on the white slats. So I had to go back in with another skewer as a spacer and glue those back down. But it was an easy fix. I just thought it was funny. Now here comes the tedious part, and I'm not gonna lie, this was a labor of love. I have these eggshells from some eggs that I boiled a while back, kept them in the fridge, and now I'm just going to crush them up into little tiny pieces. It helps if you're peeling the eggs to try and get the skin off of them, so that way they break up and a lot easier whenever you're trying to mess them up with your fingers like this. You want a fair bit of small ones, some medium ones, and some large ones. And I'm going to come in with a good bit of Mod Podge onto my coaster, and using these tweezers, I will dab them in a little bit of glue, pick up an eggshell, and place it onto the coaster. I worked in small sections, and when I was done with a whole slat, I went over it with a good heaping coat of Mod Podge and let that dry very well. For the red parts of the coaster, I even dyed some eggshell and some red food coloring. But I only made 2 coasters filling out the red because I really didn't like the way it looked. It just kind of took away from the rusticness. This really took a long time, and I'm not gonna lie, it was a lot of work, but it was totally worth it in the end, and I love the way they came out. The final reveal is coming up shortly, just wait until you see them. Now to go one step further, I took these half beads and I put them on a piece of painter's tape, and I painted them with the Java as well. These are going to be the little, well, I guess you could call them feet for our coasters. And now let's get into our last DIY for this video, which is an Uncle Sam Gnome. I'm going to be using this old creamer bottle, an old frozen grape juice container, the lid from that butter cookies tin, and these 3 old shirts. 2 of which belong to an ex-boyfriend. And can you tell why they're my ex-boyfriend? Probably because they wore red checkered shirts. Amongst a few other reasons, that is, but this is one of them. So I have no reservations about cutting this thing up. In fact, I've been wanting to do it for a few years now. And would you look how that creamer bottle fit right up the sleeve. It was literally a perfect fit. But these 2 I'm going to glue together and paint with my white Adirondack folk art chalk paint. And now, taking this white t-shirt, we're going to make Uncle Sam's beard. I'm going to cut some strips out of the t-shirt about 3 to 4 inches wide. And then I decided to cut it down a little bit more because we're going to be fringing this, and that's going to make the beard quite long. I'm cutting little pieces of fringe up to the seam line of the t-shirt. And I decided to start on the other end because it was a lot easier for me to see. But as you can see, the strips or fringe are quite thin. And then, just like we did our curling ribbon, we're going to curl or fringe our t-shirt. Once we have them stretched out, we can layer them onto the creamer bottle that I've covered with both the red and blue shirts, and then glue on a ping pong ball that I have painted in the color Sun-Kissed Peach. Now I decoupage some more stars onto our hat, which I use the blue t-shirt, the cuff of the sleeve, and the buttons as well. To make him some little arms, I'm using some leftover craft stick pieces, also painted in the color Sun-Kissed Peach, and 2 pieces of the blue t-shirt. As shown here, I fold the t-shirt over the craft sticks and glue it in place, and then I glue a little seam down the middle, and then glue that to his body. He turned out absolutely precious. So are you ready to see the final reveal? Good, because here it is. And now, as if that wasn't exciting enough, I'm going to tell you how you can enter to win a $40 Amazon gift card. All you need to do is watch my video, like and comment, and watch Theresa B DIY's video in this playlist and like and comment on her video as well. Remember not to skip the ads when watching her videos because all of her monthly revenue is going to the Fisher House Foundation. And you can also buy me a coffee and I'll donate all that as well. I want to personally thank Theresa for her service to our country, for being my co-host this month, all that she has done for the Fisher House Foundation, and for being such a fabulous woman and friend. Well, everybody, I sure hope you liked what you saw here today. Please leave me a comment down below and let me know what you think. While you're down there, go ahead and subscribe, like, and ring my bell so you'll know every time I upload a video. We'd sure like to have you as a part of the Pixie Party, so come along and join the fun. After all, your comments, likes, and subscriptions really help my channel to grow. And I'll leave you with this. May your skies be blue, your burgers be moist, your buns be dry, and your heart be humbled by all who lost their lives to bring you the freedom to enjoy such things. I wish you all a safe and blessed Memorial Day. Thank you so much for watching, and please remember that all of me loves all of you.